Yeah, we say election protection, but
Yeah, call the hotline.
Hi, Debbie. This is Tomas Lopez calling from Democracy North Carolina and our nonpartisan election protection hotline. Wanted to flag an issue that a voter had flagged for us, which was over at the county senior center that, they were able to successfully vote, but that when they were checking in, the poll greeter asked about their religion.
Got another Henderson County. Flat Rock Village Hall, polling place not accepting people's ballots due to moisture on the ballot. Voter is concerned and said this happened to many people. Moisture. Do you want to take that one?
Rejecting wet ballots and asking super personal questions may not be what most people think of when they think voter suppression. But that's exactly what the volunteers at Democracy North Carolina are worried about. Little ways people are made uncomfortable and pushed away from voting.
Hello, this is Shelby.
Tomas Lopez and his team are getting a record number of calls to their hotline, which tracks problems voters are running into across the state.
What happens in this boiler room?
Most voters who are calling, they're trying to figure out how to navigate the voting process in very broad terms. They want to figure out where to go. They want to figure out what they need to do to be able to register to vote at their early voting place. This year, we're getting tons of questions, as you could imagine, about mail voting. We're also getting questions with people sometimes concerned. There's been a lot of talk about voter intimidation. We're not getting tons of calls in terms of volume at this point about that, but we are seeing some incidents involving, in particular, aggressive electioneering near polling locations.
People here are stressed. They know North Carolina, one of the swingiest of all the swing states, could be the key to the election. For weeks, voters have been hearing the president rail against ballot fraud, and his campaign is even recruiting Election Day volunteers called the Army for Trump.
I'm urging my supporters to go into the polls and watch very carefully, because that's what has to happen. I am urging them to do it.
Trump's words did inspire Juan Cortez, but maybe not in the way the president hoped. He's now one of Democracy North Carolina's vote protectors, nonpartisan volunteers who are monitoring polling places to make sure no one has any issues casting their ballots.
Why did you want to come out?
We're at a weird moment right now where it's just I still believe in our democratic process. And just hearing the news of people either not being able to vote or just intimidation and the potential for intimidation made me realize this is still America. That shouldn't be happening.
Luckily for democracy, the early voting scene in North Carolina has been pretty tame, maybe even a little boring. Even this Black Panther, who showed up in full military gear expecting the worst, was pleasantly surprised.
Are you armed?
I am.
Have you had any confrontations with anyone so far?
No. Today has been smooth sailing. It has been really awesome. It's been beautiful. Just seeing my Black people, my brown people, my white people, all of these people just coming here to exercise their right.
So far, the closest thing we could find to Trump's army was this lady.
You come to tell me something you say I ought to know. Donald Trump's a nasty man and it's time for him to go. You say you will impeach him, honey, I don't think you can, 'cause America will stand by her man.
Sherry Lynn Womack calls herself the pint-sized Dolly Parton. She's a retired military officer who now heads up North Carolina's Women for Trump and is running for re-election to her local school board. She thinks the best ways to protect the election are measures like shortening the early voting period and requiring more restrictive voter ID.
North Carolina voted for something called voter's ID. We voted on it. We voted on it. Well, guess what? We don't have voter's ID because of a judge.
That voter ID back and forth is just one of a number of lawsuits, right, in North Carolina?
Yeah, lots of issues.
But you think voters know what the rules are?
Yeah, I think voters know. They definitely know. They're going to say they're confused if they didn't get to vote or they missed the time or something like that. But the average voter, if they took that vote and they valued it that much, they would get the ID, they would watch the procedures, and they would know what to do.
But these so-called voter integrity measures can look a lot like voter suppression.
In North Carolina, we have a recent, long-term but also recent history of attempts to make voting more difficult.
Are some of the factors that might ultimately have the biggest impact in keeping people from voting these more invisible, sort of systemic things?
That's often the case. So the voting rules themselves are sometimes confusing for people, especially if they're doing it for the first time. And then another unseen thing, right, is the ways in which the atmosphere around the election intersects with misinformation and disinformation, and real concerns that exist. We don't know how many people are going to be deterred from voting, because of the ways in which those things are interacting with one another.
Confusion is actually one of the strongest weapons of voter suppression. In the past year, rules around what signatures are required on absentee ballots and what ID you need to vote here have flipped and flopped so many times it's nearly impossible for average voters to keep up. Groups like Equality North Carolina are fighting this kind of suppression with information, one door knock at a time.
Have you made a plan to vote, ma'am?
You know what? I know I sent a document through the whatchamacallit?
Did you do it?
Box,
yeah.
but I haven't received nothing.
You said you filled out a request form, but haven't received your ballot.
Yes.
Oh, so you haven't even gotten the ballot yet? Okay. Okay. Oh, so you want to vote at the site? Okay.
Maybe I don't even know.
Okay.
I'm lost.
Okay.
But I do really love to vote.
Yeah, you need to vote because it's important. We've got so many issues that are life or death right now.
Do you have time today to vote?
Today? You take me?
Yes.
You bring me back?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Do it. Just do it. Go ahead and if she's ready to go ahead and take her.
Want to go now?
Yeah. We'll get you to the polls.
Unfortunately, a lot of people, because of circumstances and suppression, it's not something that is offered to them. The resources aren't readily available to them, and they don't have the time to be running around chasing somebody to try to get the info they need. They got to get food on their tables. They got to pay their rent.
What does it feel to have an interaction like that with a voter like that?
Those are the things that make all the really hard days great. That you know that you got one voter there. These are the days that make us want to get up again and do it all over again.